People of America, we are defenseless. We are defenseless because there is a sophisticated group of people who operate under the banner of Americanism, the philosophy that actually generated our great nation, and have, through years upon years of subterfuge and trickery, duped entire generations into believing that what they believe Americanism is, what they believe their politics is a continuation and a reflection of the wisdom of our founding generation, when in all reality, it is not. This was the lie of the progressive era. In the progressive era, the principles of the Constitution and the underlying philosophies of those principles, natural law and natural rights, were not only discarded by the people who ran that era, like Woodrow Wilson and other reformers who wanted to, so quote unquote, make society better for the common good, but their behavior was phrased as a continuation of the vision of the founders. So a lot of good-natured Americans who would have otherwise been opposed to the socialism and the central planning and the dictatorship and all of the other bad things that came from that era, they actually became amendable towards those things because they believed by manipulation that those things were in service of the goals of the founding. And Hillary Clinton and her entire political career and what she recently said about the need to formally deprogram or reprogram people who support Donald Trump is a reflection of this long, wretched, and storied history of people who hate America masquerading as people who love America and then convincing entire generations that their brand of politics reflects love for America, when in all reality, it reflects hatred. Hillary Clinton went on Christiane Amanpour's news show and made a statement, as I alluded to a second ago, that I will play for you. Because if I say it, many of you who have not seen it might be shocked that an American politician, someone who is supposed to be a member of the intellectual tradition of our nation, which is soaked in the fires of freedom, you might be surprised that someone like this might say something as asinine, as Orwellian, as terrifying as what I'm about to show you. Go ahead.
And sadly, so many of those extremists, those MAGA extremists, take their marching orders from Donald Trump, who has no credibility left by any measure. He's only in it for himself. He's now defending himself in civil actions and criminal actions. And when do they break with him? You know, because at some point, you know, maybe there needs to be a formal deprogramming of the cult members, but something needs to happen.
And how do you do that? Because you said you have to defeat them by defeating their leader. Their leader
Right.
is Donald Trump. Even you have said that you expect him to be the Republican nominee. How does this change at all?
At this point, I think, sadly, he will still likely be the nominee, and we have to defeat him. And we have to defeat those who are the election deniers, as we did in 2020 and 2022. And we have to, you know, just be smarter about how we are trying to empower the right people inside the Republican Party.
Wow. Now that clip, there's a full 5-minute clip that actually provides more context, but the context doesn't make it any better. The context is that Hillary Clinton believes, as she said, this is her words, that Donald Trump has emotionally manipulated people. And therefore, we have to deprogram the people who are in the cult who he emotionally manipulated. Now, as many of you understand, I am not a partisan. I am at first a thinker, and I am at first a lover of our nation, America, and I am at first a lover of philosophy. So it is not my goal to tell you who to vote for. It is not my goal to tell you what your political predilections should be, but it is my goal to shed light on some universal truths that can help anyone of any political orientation understand the world around them better, number one, but also number two, understand the political condition of our nature, because far too often do we stick to the mundane things of politics. What personality is doing what bill is being passed, what party is doing what. You know, all these things that have made us, for the past few years of internet political discourse going on, they've filled us with so much conviction, with so much anger, with so much passion. Yet we have, in many cases, no productive means by which to conduct that to something greater than just the 24-hour news cycle thinking that we are all imprisoned in to some degree, myself included. We have to resist this complacent norm of our age that keeps us from the light of truth. And so that's my goal as a person here on the internet trying to get you to think more. But having said that, it's also my goal to call a spade a spade. And one thing is exceptionally clear to me, that Hillary Clinton's worldview is despicable. But it's not just despicable because it is fundamentally odious and it rebels against the human activity of free expression, which all human beings need to live at their fullest potential in this world. Not just that, but all human beings need that free expression to be able to understand reality and truth in this world. And of course, we understand what the consequences of not understanding reality and not understanding truth are. The consequences are you thinking that you are a different condition than what you were born as. The consequences are you believing that you can fundamentally change basic facts about the natural world to fit your idea of what the natural world should be. It's called Gnosticism. That there are so many consequences to not being connected to reality. But one of those consequences, in my opinion, is also destroying good things that took a long time to create. So not only is her worldview despicable, but it also reflects a mentality that came from old world Europe, where people were ruled by diktat, where people were ruled by subjugation, where thoughts were controlled by the institutions of the time, and the individual human being was sacrificed for the community because the individual human being did not matter in the context of feudal systems, in the context of the divine right of kings, in the context of all these different intellectual forces that were holding down human progress, that were holding down man's relationship with reality. Human beings didn't matter. Hillary Clinton's mindset is a relic from that old world and is a pure rejection of the philosophy of Americanism. She would much rather rule by diktat and subjugate the thoughts of Americans who support a particular political candidate than she would support the principles of America, because America is not just a geography, it's not just a tradition, it's not just a designation on the Census Bureau or given to you by the Customs Office. No. Americanism is fundamentally a philosophy, and being an American is a reflection of that philosophy. And that philosophy, which Clinton rejects in that clip, has a few components that are non-negotiable. Number one, popular sovereignty. Popular sovereignty. You must believe that the people should be empowered to make decisions about their own life and the political life. Consent. You must believe that the people have the ability and have the necessity to give you permission or to not give you permission to do certain things as a government. And number three, the rights of the minority. You must believe, even if the majority consent to something, that does not make it right. And the minority will oftentimes matter more and should be protected as a matter of cause, because the individual is indeed the smallest minority in this nation. And all ethical action and all moral action begin with the consideration of how the individual lives in the world, of how the individual uses their free will to live in this world. That's the baseline of Americanism. But if you support censorious behavior, if you support indoctrination, if you support re-education, if you support any action that violates man's conscience, any action that deprives and attacks man's free will, you are not an American. This means that many people who call themselves progressives are not Americans. People, neocons that prefer censorship and empowering and lining the coffers of people who do not, in the face of scrutiny, stand up well, they are not Americans. Hillary Clinton is not an American, because being an American is a philosophical statement. It is not simply you having a certain status on your birth certificate, or having a certain status on your social security card, or having a certain status with the government. We need to reclaim what it actually means to believe in the philosophy of our nation. and begin to erect defenses against people who have foreign ideas that are against our principles as Americans and that seek to undermine and undercut them. Because progressivism is an import from Europe that came from the central planning of Otto von Bismarck in Germany, which was also informed by the ideas of Hegel. And we understand Hegelianism and the impact it's having on our culture right now. It basically is the undercurrent of modern day Marxist movements. These ideas are not American. But Hillary Clinton and so many of her friends, whether they know it or not, share these ideas and have convinced an entire generation that these ideas are not only American, they are compassionate and they are moral. No. My friends, the greatest threat, and Samuel Adams understood this too, he said this in one of his writings, the greatest threat to our country will not be the foreign powers that can march armies onto our shores and overtake us by force, because if you put an army on American soil, they will never conquer this land. We are too big, we have too many arms, and our people are too smart to be conquered by a foreign force. But if you can implant the seeds of corruption in the minds of Americans, and you can have entire generations labor under a lie and labor under a misunderstanding of the role of politics in society, then you can slowly from within rot the American spirit and tear out the heart and then rebuild it in your own image. That's what progressives have been doing for decades. I almost said centuries, but for decades. For almost a century now, actually, but for decades. They have convinced the American public that universal health care is a right, and there is a significant percentage of many people in America who believe that. They have convinced the American public that welfare, as a matter of course, matters more than community relationships and voluntary interaction and work ethic and personal responsibility. There is an entire community in America, many African Americans, many minorities, who are under the boot of the welfare state and who have no problem with it because they have been conditioned by the progressive mindset to be okay with it. Progressivism has attacked the very baseline values of this nation and have convinced us that universal first principles don't matter, but how certain behaviors impact marginalized groups in society matter more than what is true, what is correct, what is right. It has reduced America to a hell of relativism, my truth versus your truth, as opposed to the capital T truth, which is the only truth that matters if you're going to live a coherent and moral life. Progressivism, as reflected by Hillary Clinton and her friends, is one of the greatest threats to American sovereignty. But ignorance of what it means to actually be an American is also a great threat, perhaps even greater than progressivism. Because if progressivism doesn't fill that void, something else will. You could have an extreme form of authoritarianism on the left or the right that can fulfill that void. If people don't understand and have the principles needed to understand what it means to live in this nation and be a member of this nation. Indoctrination, re-education, all of those things are products of authoritarian governments that America, by its very nature, by its very definition, rejected when we did our revolution and as we have continued our perfection of this experiment. But there are unfortunately a lot of people who have managed to normalize this kind of discourse in America, like a virus coming in and affecting the community, who have managed to normalize the idea of hate speech as a means of understanding human expression, as opposed to understanding ideas, hateful or non-hateful or whatever, are all valuable for us to understand, because every time we hear an idea, that informs our understanding of the world and that allows us to deal with ideas that are in tension. A man who cannot reconcile ideas that are in tension is not someone who can think. He's not someone who can grow. He is someone who will remain stagnant in his spirit and his mind and his life. These are fundamentally human ideas that America reflects and understands. Hillary Clinton, by virtue of her statement, doesn't understand that people like her, or why Donald Trump actually had a significant rise in this country, and why populism is on the uptick. People like her, elitist, know-it-alls, presumptuous, pretentious, hateful of the common man, are precisely why populism has overtaken the American public. So many people are so feign ignorance. Oh, how could this happen? How could this happen in America? It happened because the established order was complacent with ideas that harmed the country for so long, and people knew, people understand, and people decided to fight back. That's why it happened. But when you view society, again, not as a matter of individuals with their own minds and viewpoints and free will, but instead as a amalgam of social classes and statuses moving together in conflict with each other, as Hillary Clinton understands society, if you view it as a matter of power, if you view social relationships and politics as a matter of power, you can ignore all of that and do the long march towards whatever agenda you want to do in complete disregard for the people and those first principles. Because when power is a matter of consideration, first principles oftentimes takes the back seat. We should be outraged. But Americans, we shouldn't just be outraged, we should also be thinking, how can we defend the principle of Americanism from foreign invaders like Hillary Clinton and those who have our ideas? We can do it by, as I mentioned in my last video, which I'll put in the comment section down below, why no one deserves American citizenship. We can do it by beginning mass citizenship revocations for people like her and others who reject the principles of our founding and our nation and refuse to live in concert with them. If you reject the ideas that generate your citizenship, you should not have citizenship. This is the only way to defend our republic from people who would seek to destroy it from the inside out and remake it in their horrid image. America will not be Europe 2.0. We will always be America so long as the fires of our independence burn in all of our hearts. And as for me and my house, they shall burn brightly, and they shall be a beacon to this world. But that has to only happen. It won't only happen if more people understand the truth and embrace the truth. My friends, like this video, comment on this video, share this video, donate to me on my Patreon, on my PayPal, my locals. Also, be sure to study history, study philosophy, think, but most importantly, my friends, please, 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 stay pensive. Love all of you. Bye-bye.